Well, I've definitely been thinking about the Roman Empire lately. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today our movie in the middle is Megalopolis.
Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis.
Megalopolis is Francis Ford Coppola's newest movie, a fable that looks at modern-day Roman Empire and the struggle between a genius architect trying to create a utopia and the city's mayor who thwarts to keep the city as is. It stars Adam Driver, Nathalie Emmanuel, Aubrey Plaza, Jon Voight, Laurence Fishburne, Giancarlo Esposito, and yes,
Hollywood superstar Shia LaBeouf.
So this is Francis Ford Coppola's passion project that he apparently came up with the idea for in 1977. He has been sitting on this idea for almost 50 years, and he could not get funding for it, which is insane, considering he is the guy who made The Godfather and Apocalypse Now. He could not get a budget for this movie, which is a little bit concerning, but then we heard that he sold all of his vineyards to do so, and I respect it. He's got a passion. He had such a drive to make this movie that he quite literally, as my brother put it, sold the farm. Now, because of this little bit of a lack of funding, and then just from the first little previews that we had gotten, I was like, you know, I expect that this movie isn't going to be great. It's not going to look as polished as it should be, but it's probably going to have a lot of cool ideas. We got the first trailer, and that is exactly what I was thinking we were going to get, because it looked really interesting. It looked like a Babylon or Don't Worry, Darling kind of thing, where it had all these really interesting ideas and concepts and cool scenes, really cool visuals, even if it did sort of look like it was going to be a Sci-Fi Channel movie, you know, like one of those made-for-TV movies. But basically I expected, yeah, it's not going to be up to the level quality-wise that it needs to be, visually, because of the lack of funding, but I bet there's going to be some really good stuff in here. Starting off with the highs, the concept of this movie is very interesting. I really like this idea of, what if the Roman Empire never fell? And then, of course, this artistic side of it was really, really cool, along with all of the power struggles and everything. I really love the idea that we were going to get, this cool architect who has an idea for how this future can look, how this city can look, and designing that, and all of his little gadgets and everything that he uses to do it. And a lot of the imagery in this movie is really, really cool, specifically when it comes to, again, the architecture of the city, the statues, a lot of these ideas where it's silhouettes on buildings and evolution and things like that. It was tackling a lot of really, really big ideas. And again, even if it didn't look as polished as it should have, again, it was also the concept of a lot of this imagery and these visuals that I really, really liked.
I have concepts of a plan.
There's also a lot of pretty entertaining moments in a lot of these really weird situations and conversations, specifically with Adam Driver and Jason Schwartzman, both of which I love, especially Jason Schwartzman. He could just come in and make a movie just fun and funny.
Quick, slow. Quick, slow.
But Adam Driver is absolutely the best part of this movie. His character is very interesting because at times I wasn't sure whether he was supposed to be the character or rooting for or not, because he's kind of that tortured artist genius with this future that no one else can visualize but him. And a lot of how he speaks, a lot of how, what he talks about and tries to persuade people is very, very interesting. I really thought his character was very intriguing. I also really respect, or at least find interesting, characters who say that they don't care about what happens to other people, but at the same time they also don't care about what happens to them, meaning that their idea supersedes everything, even themselves. And in fact, most of the actors are doing the best that they could with what they were given, including Shia LaBeouf, who is as crazy and wacky and entertaining as ever. Aubrey Plaza did a great job. Nathalie Emmanuel is probably the most grounded character in the movie. She did a very, very good job. And of course, Giancarlo Esposito does as well of a job as he does in every other role that he plays, which is just about the same role. And at this point, I kind of want him to branch out and do some other things. And that's not even everybody who's in the cast. Everybody I've already listed isn't even the total amount of people. You also have Kathryn Hunter, Talia Shire, Dustin Hoffman, and Grace Vanderwaal for some reason. And so with that insane cast, I'm wondering, how did it feel that the acting here and there wasn't as good as it could have been? And what I'm going to say here is that the high is the acting in terms of the actors doing everything they possibly could with this script. The directing is not as much of a high. But before I get into that, I do have one quick middle, which is that there is this element of magic in the movie. And what I mean by that is, you know, and this is in the trailer, is part of the concept is that Adam Driver's character, Caesar, can stop time whenever he wants. It's not really ever explained. It's a cool idea, but honestly, it's something that if they hadn't put that in there, it wouldn't have affected the movie at all. If they took that out, it wouldn't change the movie. And not only is the time-stopping part of it, but then there's moments where, like, statues move. And then there's this element called Megalon, which is what he's going to build all of the buildings out of, that has, like, this power over people, like the One Ring. Like, at first it was like, okay, it's just this, like, really good material. And then it sort of became, like, this thing that everybody bowed to and was, like, amazing and healed bones. And I'm thinking, okay, so how is nobody acknowledging that magic exists in this world? Then I started to think it's probably symbolic. It seemed to get to a certain point where it felt like this is more of a, not a MacGuffin, but more of just like this thing that more so symbolized power and advancement and the future of things rather than being an actual thing itself. And it did go along with this more abstract, weird side that I did not expect from this movie or from Coppola. At certain points, it felt like I was watching an Ari Aster, like, Beau is Afraid movie, because there was just so much weird stuff going on that was very surreal. And a lot of it had to do with, like, scenes where people are taking drugs, so that makes sense. But then there was other stuff that had nothing to do with that, and I'm like, what is going on? That being said, I wasn't really taken out of it by that. It was more so other things. But this element of magic, I'm going to say is a middle just because I think it might be more symbolic than anything else. So getting into the lows, this movie just feels really off. Something is just not clicking with me on this movie, and part of that, a lot of it, is the directing, where it feels like there's something here, and it should be good, but there's just something off about it. I don't know if it was the directing of the actors, the directing of the story, all of it, but it's just, it was a lot of different things. One of the big things is that the idea that this is modern day Rome is really cool, but it does not feel fleshed out enough. I'm totally on board with this concept that the Roman Empire never fell, and we are now in whatever, like the third age, 21st century New Rome, and we probably would have still a lot of the same inventions, advancements, achievements that we have today in our world, but we would also still have a lot of the things that came from ancient Rome, like a lot of the fashion. It would just be more updated and modernized, and they actually did a pretty good job with that, like, being like, okay, we still sort of dress like it's the Roman Empire, but it's updated a little bit. That was actually pretty cool. Something just doesn't feel right when you have a society that has chariot races and togas alongside, and I'm not kidding, QR codes and MetLife. It just felt like sometimes this was an updated Rome with unique building designs and fashion, and sometimes it was just New York. And even with the fashion, a lot of times they had, for the most part, really cool blends of both types, and then sometimes people were just wearing regular clothes. Like, I was just so confused. But possibly the biggest low of this movie is the script. I have no idea what the point of this movie being made was. It felt like a lot of effort for just about nothing. Like, there's so many plots and subplots that come up that aren't even really dealt with. Like, it's a thing for a little bit, and then we just move on to something else. Like, the plot just keeps moving on from thing to thing until suddenly it just ends, and it's like everyone's sort of just nice and happy with each other, and everything wraps up with a bow. And I'm like, but how did we get here? You didn't address this or this or this, and things just keep happening and switching back and forth to other things. It just felt like the movie was just sort of like, I don't know what's going on, and it's sort of like this big mess of subplots, and then suddenly the movie just wants to end, so it wraps up and it's fine. The worst part is, I don't know what Coppola wanted to say with this movie, or even worse, I don't know if he had anything to say. The fact that he came up with this movie in 1977 feels like he's been developing it for 50 years, but did he have to, especially because it's addressing such big concepts and themes, did he have to keep changing it as society went on and different things were prevalent? Was it so generic that he could do it at any point, so that means it really was about nothing? I don't know, but it very much feels like, when people make that joke about, like, the Joker movie, we live in a society, it literally felt like that, except we live in a civilization, because that was this movie's big thing, being a civilization. And so it just kind of felt like, the whole movie was just like, remember, war, that's a thing, poverty happens, there's art, and there's greed, and there's power, and it's like, yeah, but what? I honestly would have loved more of the utopian conversations, these actual architectural and artistic processes, but instead we kind of got bogged down in just generic Shakespearean-esque plots of greed and power struggles and love conflicts. This felt like they're trying to make a big movie. They're trying to make a movie that says something and is huge and has a Laurence Fishburne voiceover and big text on the screen, and it's about Rome and it's got proverbs, but it doesn't actually feel big. Versus something like Oppenheimer, where he goes out and he tries to make a big movie, and it does feel like a big movie. So overall, I really wanted to come out of this movie, and basically expected to come out of this movie thinking, okay, yeah, it wasn't the best it could have been because of restraints, but there was a lot of good stuff here, stuff I really, really liked. It could have been a little bit better, but overall, it was cool. The problem was, it's not even that it was weird, or that it was underfunded, or even that the quality of the visuals wasn't great. Nothing just made sense. I didn't understand the setting. I didn't really understand the plot that was going. I mean, scene to scene, it's like, okay, yeah, like, this is happening. But, like, in general, how it all connects, nothing, I don't know what the point of this movie was. And it sucks, because it seemed like it was going to be a really cool concept. I want to say it was because of the funding, but unfortunately, it's just not. And unfortunately, it just didn't grab me the way I wanted it to. Hold on. Let me rephrase that. It did not entertain me and hook me the way I thought it might. There we go. I'm going to give Megalopolis a 1.5 out of 4. And because of the fact that this movie is mostly flash without much to actually say, at least from what I could see, I'm also going to give this the Fish Tank Award. Well, guys, let me know what you thought of Megalopolis. Let me know if you actually found it a lot better than I did. I know a lot of people really love this. There is probably stuff that people really like about it. It's just the fact that I just couldn't get anything from 5 minutes out of the movie from it that really turned me off to it, unfortunately. But you might have a different opinion. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.